I was on Fox News several times and referred to Kamala Harris as a DEI vice president. And I got a ton of blowback for that, went viral for it, called a racist and the whole bit. But in Joe Biden's own words, in my opinion, he said outright, I'm going to pick a woman. And there was pressure on him to pick a woman of color, which to me seems to be the very definition of the DEI. So what's your take? Is Kamala Harris a DEI vice president?
She definitely is. And I'm sure that there are Black women in America who would have been more qualified. But it troubles me that race has been attached to the qualifications of important positions where experience really counts. And so when you look at Kamala Harris, other than the fact that she has managed to have, quote, relationships with powerful people, there's no evidence that she's been successful at anything that she's done. And so I think that the focus on DEI harms women as well as racial and ethnic minorities and members of the LGBTQ community, because homosexuals have always lived and worked among us. They didn't feel the need to announce it, and many of them live quiet lives now. But when you pick flamboyant people because they openly identify with a particular group, then I think you set back progress.
Yeah, well said. And I kind of even go back to even childhood when we were playing street football, and we were picking teams for who was going to play on our team. We didn't pick people based on what color they were, who they were attracted to. We picked on someone who could catch the ball. We wanted somebody who could tackle somebody. That was the most important thing. Are you good at doing this?
I agree. As the person who was never picked, I was always the last person they were forced to pick when I was in grade school. But I have a friend who is in her 60s, and she always played on the boys' team. They chose her because she was good.
Yeah, and you even look back to somebody like a Michael Jordan, who he was cut from his high school basketball team. And who knows, if he had not been cut from that team and just said, oh, we'll just get him on here because he's a Black kid, we'll let him make the team, maybe he doesn't get that fire in him to say, you know what, I'm going to prove everybody wrong. And look what happens to him. He turns out to be the best. So sometimes that adversity, because you're not good enough, makes you overcome it and become even better. But you're crippling people by just letting them get away with it just because of who they are. I think you're doing them a disservice.
You are, and I can tell you from my own experience that when people told me that I couldn't do something, boy, was I going to show them that I could. And for myself, I've been highly successful within academia and graduated from my four-year college, magna cum laude, even though I was a high school dropout. And I was smart enough to see the environment and to figure out at some point that a high achieving minority could go far, because during the era that I came through, there was an effort to identify high achieving minorities. And so now they pretend as if high achieving minorities don't exist. So you have to scrape the bottom of the barrel to find people who self-identify. And and it's not just me, there are millions of minorities and I would say members of the LGBTQ community that have been very successful. They didn't do it by focusing on their identities.
And I also think, too, it's just simply even when Joe Biden was going to appoint President Biden was going to appoint his Supreme Court justice, he outright said, I'm picking a woman of color. So right there, any judge across the country that was top qualified is like, okay, I'm out now. Not because I'm not the best person that could be. And these jobs don't come around very often. Your opportunity now is gone just because you don't fit the suit. You don't fit the criteria that they're looking for. Not because you're the best qualified, just because you don't fit the right color and the right gender, you're out. And to me, that's right. Crazy to do that.
And you know something, no matter what people say about J.D. Vance, I believe he was the right selection to be President Trump's vice president. And they had set up an environment that almost forced people. In fact, many Republicans went along with it. It has to be a woman, has to be a racial and ethnic minority, can't be a white male. And so he chose a white male. And I think that was important for Americans. And so there was a time when we wanted racial and ethnic minorities to see high achieving racial and ethnic minorities so they could aspire to those positions. Well, we have created an environment where being a white male is a disadvantage. And so you see little white children, and I have friends, that have sons. And I think about those young men and the world that we have created that's so unfair to them because they're being denigrated for things their ancestors may or may not have done.